The Intergalactic Council station did not orbit Astra Prime so much as dominate it. Commander Elias Vance stood at the observation deck of the diplomatic cruiser Aegis Dawn, watching the construct grow across the viewport like a silent verdict. It stretched for thousands of kilometers, layered rings of alien architecture spinning in slow, deliberate motion, each segment carrying its own gravity well, atmosphere, and purpose. It was older than any human government, older than most civilizations currently represented within its chambers. And it was watching them. Docking corridor assigned. The ship's AI announced, voice neutral. Sector 12. Human delegation clearance verified. Elias didn't respond immediately. His eyes tracked the faint shimmer of defensive grids sliding over the station's hull. Not welcoming. Not hostile either. Something colder, measured. "You've been staring at that thing for 10 minutes, came a voice behind him. Elias turned. Ambassador Lien Zhou approached with practiced calm, her expression unreadable. She had spent more years negotiating with alien powers than most people spent breathing. Even she looked uneasy. "Trying to decide if it's a seat of governance or a fortress," Elias said. Zhou glanced at the viewport. "It's both. That's the point." Elias exhaled slowly. "We're not exactly honored guests." "We're not equals," Zhou corrected. "Not yet." The words settled between them without argument. A soft chime interrupted the silence. Elias tapped the interface on his wrist. A small holographic window flickered to life, projecting a familiar face. Lena. Her dark hair was tied back messily, as if she had done it in a hurry. Her eyes were bright, reflecting the artificial lights of wherever she was recording from. "Hi, Dad," she said, leaning too close to the camera. "Are you at the council yet?" Elias felt something inside him loosen. "Almost. We're docking now." "Is it big?" she asked. He glanced at the station again. "Bigger than anything you've ever seen." Her smile widened. "You promised you'd tell me about it when you get back." "I did." "And the stars," she added quickly. "Don't forget the stars." Elias allowed himself a faint smile. "I won't." She hesitated for a moment, then lowered her voice as if sharing a secret. "They said we might get to visit part of the station. The learning sector. It's safe, right?" The question caught him off guard. "Of course it is," he said, steady and certain. "It's the safest place in the galaxy." Lena nodded, satisfied. "Okay. I'll be brave. You always are." The transmission ended, leaving the deck quieter than before. Zhou studied him briefly. "Your daughter?" Elias nodded. "She's lucky," Zhou said. "Most children don't get to see this place." Elias looked back at the station. "I'm not sure lucky is the word I'd use." The docking clamps engaged with a heavy thud that reverberated through the hull. "Arrival confirmed," the AI said. The council had opened its doors. The transition from human design to alien architecture was immediate. The docking corridor was too wide, too smooth, its walls composed of a seamless material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Gravity felt subtly different, as though it had been calibrated for something that did not walk upright. Security presence was overwhelming. Tall, armored figures lined the passage, council enforcers, their forms varying from species to species. Some stood on multiple limbs, others hovered slightly above the ground. None spoke. None moved. But all of them watched. Elias walked at the head of the delegation, his posture controlled, his pace measured. He felt the weight of those gazes pressing against him, dissecting, evaluating. "They're scanning us," one of the aides whispered behind him. Elias didn't look back. "Let them." The corridor opened into a vast atrium that defied conventional geometry. Platforms floated at different heights, connected by bridges of light. Delegates from dozens of species moved through the space, their conversations forming a low, constant hum. When the human delegation entered, the hum changed. It didn't stop. It shifted. Eyes turned. Movement slowed. Conversations lowered just enough to signal awareness without acknowledgement. Zhou stepped beside Elias. Don't react. I'm not, he said. You are, she replied quietly. You just hide it better than most. A procession of council attendants approached, their forms uniform and featureless beneath ceremonial coverings. Human delegation, one of them said, its voice layered, as if multiple tones spoke at once. You are expected. No welcome. No courtesy. Elias followed them toward the central chamber. The council chamber was designed to remind every species of its place. It was circular, vast beyond scale, with tiered platforms rising toward a ceiling that disappeared into shadow. Each platform was occupied by a different delegation, arranged not randomly but by influence, by history, by power. Humanity's position was near the lower tiers. Not the lowest. But close enough. Elias took his assigned place, standing rather than sitting. He preferred it that way. It made him feel less contained. At the center of the chamber, a raised platform shifted, its surface restructuring itself as a figure emerged. High Arbiter XY Thrall. The Virelian did not resemble any organic life Elias had encountered. Its form was elongated, composed of interwoven organic tissue and metallic structures that pulsed faintly with internal light. Its face, if it could be called that, was smooth, featureless, except for a series of shifting patterns that suggested perception. When it spoke, the entire chamber listened. Proceedings will begin, XY Thrall said. Its voice was precise, each word delivered with surgical clarity. The matter of compliance will be addressed. A projection materialized above the central platform, images of war, of destruction, of entire systems burning. Human history. The Solar Purge Wars. Elias felt the shift immediately. Not in himself, but in the room. The attention sharpened, focusing on the human delegation. Your species, XY Thrall continued, achieved interstellar capability through conflict. Internal annihilation. System-wide devastation. The images changed, fleets colliding, planets fracturing, silence where life had once existed. You call this your past, XY Thrall said. We call it precedent. Joe stepped forward. Humanity has adhered to every council treaty since its induction. Our record is clear. Your record is recent, XY Thrall replied. Your history is not. A pause. Restrictions exist for a reason. Weapons of mass extinction are prohibited. Compliance ensures survival, yours and others. Elias spoke before Joe could respond. We've complied, he said. Fully. XY Thrall turned toward him, its attention unmistakable. Verification is not yet complete. Elias met that invisible gaze. You've inspected every registered system. Registered, XY Thrall repeated. The word lingered. A subtle shift passed through the chamber. Not quite accusation. Not yet. But close. Elias felt it then, the underlying current he had sensed since their arrival. This wasn't routine scrutiny. This was something else. Something deliberate. XY Thrall spoke again. Further inspections will be scheduled. Joe inclined her head. We will cooperate. Ensure that you do, XY Thrall said. The projection vanished. The chamber dimmed slightly, signaling the end of the session. Delegates began to disperse. Elias remained where he was, watching the central platform. Commander, Joe said quietly. The council station never truly slept. Even in its quieter sectors, there was always motion, subtle currents of activity flowing through corridors that stretched for kilometers, through chambers where species debated matters older than human civilization. Astrop Prime's orbit cast a steady glow through transparent structures, bathing everything in a pale, artificial dawn. Commander Elias Vance stood on an elevated walkway overlooking one of the station's internal transit hubs. Below him, delegates moved in intersecting patterns, guided by luminous pathways that shifted according to traffic. Every step, every movement, was controlled. Nothing here was accidental. Commander. Elias turned. A council liaison approached, its body composed of layered segments that flexed with each movement. Its voice carried that same multitonal resonance he had begun to associate with the station. The educational sector has confirmed your authorization. Your daughter's group is proceeding as scheduled. Elias nodded once. Security protocols? Standard measures are in effect. No deviations detected. No deviations. Elias glanced down at his wrist interface. Lena's program schedule was displayed in precise intervals: orientation, observation deck, cultural exhibits. A controlled environment. Civilian access only? Safe. Understood, he said. The liaison inclined its upper body slightly and departed without another word. Elias remained where he was for a moment longer, watching the patterns below. Something about the station's rhythm unsettled him. It wasn't the scale. It was the precision. Everything here behaved exactly as expected. Which meant if something didn't, it would be intentional. A sharp tone cut through the ambient noise. Alert, security protocol engaged. The lights shifted instantly. Soft white illumination dimmed, replaced by pulsing amber strips along the walls and floor. Movement below faltered, confusion rippling through the crowd. A second alert followed, louder. Containment directive initiated. Elias's hand moved automatically to his wrist interface. Command, this is Vance. Report. Static answered him. Then a voice, clipped and strained. Unidentified breach in Sector 8. All personnel advised to remain in place. Sector 8. Elias's gaze dropped to the scheduled display. Lena's group was in Sector 8. His pulse spiked. Define breach, Elias demanded. No visual confirmation, the voice replied. Security units are deploying. No visual confirmation. Elias didn't wait for further clarification. He turned and moved, his pace quickening as he headed toward the nearest transit access. Behind him, the station began to change. The corridors were no longer orderly. Delegates hurried in multiple directions, their composure breaking under the weight of uncertainty. Automated barriers slid into place, sealing off sections without warning. Overhead, mechanical structures unfolded, revealing weapon systems that tracked movement with cold precision. Elias pushed through the flow, ignoring protests, as he forced his way toward a descending platform. Commander! A human aide called after him. We've been instructed to remain. Stay with the delegation. Elias snapped without slowing. That's an order. The platform dropped, gravity shifting subtly as it accelerated. Elias's eyes remained fixed on the sector map projected before him. Sector 8. Distance, 1.7 kilometers. Estimated arrival, 43 seconds. Another alert sounded. Engagement authorized. Elias froze for half a heartbeat. Engagement? With what? He muttered. The platform halted abruptly. The doors opened before it fully stabilized. Elias moved. The first gunshot echoed through the corridor like a crack in reality. It wasn't a sound that belonged here. Not in a place built on control, on order, on the illusion of perfect governance. Another shot followed. Then a burst. Elias broke into a run. The hallway ahead was filled with civilians, various species pressed against the walls, some frozen, others trying to move without understanding where safety lay. The air carried the sharp scent of discharged energy weapons. Clear the corridor! Elias shouted. Move! They didn't understand him. But they understood urgency. A path opened. At the far end, Council enforcers advanced in formation. Their weapons were raised, their movements synchronized. They weren't searching. They were firing. A bolt of coherent energy struck the wall beside a cluster of unarmed delegates, vaporizing a section of the surface. The impact sent fragments scattering. Elias slowed, disbelief cutting through his momentum. This is a containment breach, he said under his breath. There was no visible threat. No attackers. No resistance. Only targets. His wrist interface vibrated violently. Incoming transmission. Elias answered instantly. Lena? Static. Then her voice, small and strained. Dad? I'm here, he said, forcing calm into his tone. Where are you? I don't know, she said. They told us to stay together, but people started running in. A sharp noise cut through the transmission. A scream. Not hers. Elias's grip tightened. Listen to me. Find cover. Stay low. I'm coming to you. I can hear them, Lena whispered. They're shooting. I know, Elias said. Stay down. Do not move unless you have to. I'm almost there. A pause. Dad, she said, her voice trembling now. Why are they shooting? Elias had no answer. Just stay where you are, he said. I'm coming. The line went silent. The education sector was chaos. Display structures lay shattered, their projections flickering erratically. Emergency lighting cast long shadows across the floor, distorting everything into unfamiliar shapes. Bodies lay scattered. Some moving. Some not. Elias slowed as he entered, his senses narrowing, filtering out everything except what mattered. Lena! He called. No response. Another burst of gunfire echoed from a side corridor. Elias turned toward it instinctively, then forced himself back on course. Find her. A small figure moved near the far wall. Elias's breath caught. Lena! She turned at the sound of his voice, relief flashing across her face. Dad! She took a step toward him. A flash of light crossed the space between them. Elias saw it happen. Saw the angle. The trajectory. The inevitability. No! The impact lifted her off her feet. Time fractured. Elias was moving before she hit the ground, closing the distance in seconds that felt like hours. He dropped beside her, his hands already searching for damage, for anything he could fix. Stay with me, he said, his voice breaking despite himself. Stay with me. Her eyes found his, wide and unfocused. I didn't move, she whispered. You said? I know, Elias said quickly. You did everything right. You hear me? Everything. Her small hand grasped his sleeve, weak but determined. I was brave, she said. Elias swallowed hard. You were the bravest. Her grip loosened. Tell me about the stars, she murmured. The words barely reached him. Then they were gone. Elias didn't move. Around him, the chaos continued, distant gunfire, shouted commands, the mechanical precision of a system still executing its directives. None of it mattered. He held her, the world narrowing to a single, irreversible point. By the time council medics arrived, the sector had been secured. The shooting had stopped. The explanation came quickly. An unauthorized incursion triggered defensive protocols. A council official stated, its tone devoid of inflection. Regrettable casualties occurred during containment. Elias didn't look at it. Silence was the only thing Elias trusted. The council station hummed with activity again, corridors restored, systems reset, official statements distributed across every channel. The incident had already been categorized, archived, contained. An unfortunate outcome. A procedural failure. Closed. Elias sat alone in his assigned quarters, the lights dimmed to near darkness. The station's artificial gravity pressed evenly against him, unchanging, indifferent. His wrist interface hovered above the table, replaying the same recording. Lena's face flickered into view. Hi, Dad! He didn't let it play further. The image froze mid-smile, suspended in time, untouched by what came after. Elias leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together. They no longer shook. That had passed. What remained was something else. Focus. A quiet chime broke the stillness. Commander Vance? Ambassador Zhou's voice came through the door interface. The Council has released preliminary findings. We need to review them. Elias didn't move. I've already seen enough, he said. There was a pause. Then, more carefully, we cannot act without evidence. Elias looked at the frozen image above the table. Then I'll find it, he he said. Accessing Council data without authorization was impossible. That was the official stance. Elias had spent years learning the difference between impossible and difficult. The terminal in his quarters was standard, restricted, monitored, limited to approved channels. It wasn't designed for intrusion. But it was connected. Elias activated his military credentials, layers of clearance buried beneath diplomatic identifiers. Most of them were outdated, archived under treaties that no longer applied. Not all of them. Authenticate, the system prompted. Elias hesitated for a fraction of a second, then spoke. Vance Elias. Commander. Black Fleet authorization. The terminal paused. A warning appeared. Access level restricted. Protocol prohibited under Council law. Elias didn't blink. Override, he said. Legacy access. Another pause. Then, authorization accepted. The interface shifted, its structure unfolding into something deeper, less regulated. Lines of encrypted data streamed across the display, old systems intersecting with new ones in ways the Council had likely never anticipated. Elias worked quickly. Security logs. Deployment records. Command chains. The official report had been clean, too clean. No inconsistencies. No anomalies. A perfect reconstruction of events that explained nothing. Which meant the truth had been removed. Filtering for redacted entries, Elias muttered. The system complied. Hidden layers surfaced. Not erased. Buried. Elias leaned closer as new data populated the screen. Security alert origin internal. He frowned. Internal, he repeated. The Council had claimed an external incursion. An unknown threat breaching the station's defenses. But the alert had originated from within. Elias scrolled further. Deployment orders appeared next. Council enforcers, multiple units, activated simultaneously. Target sectors highlighted. He froze. Every marked location corresponded to human presence. Diplomatic quarters. Transit corridors. Education wing. Lena's sector. Elias's jaw tightened. This wasn't containment, he said quietly. It was targeting. A soft tone interrupted him. Secondary system detected. Elias stilled. A fragment of code had appeared within the data stream, old, encrypted, predating the Council's architecture. It didn't belong to the station. It belonged to something else. Elias recognized it instantly. War Archive, he said under his breath. He accessed it. The interface shifted again, colder now, stripped of unnecessary structure. A presence formed within the system, not visual, not audible, but undeniable. Identification required, it stated. Elias exhaled slowly. Commander Elias Vance. Authorization Sigma Black. A pause. Then, identity confirmed. The presence sharpened. Elias felt it like pressure at the edge of thought. The Black Fleet AI. He hadn't accessed it in years. Directive? It asked. Analysis, Elias said. Security incident. Cross-reference all available data. Processing. The system moved faster than anything the Council had designed. Data reorganized itself, patterns forming where none had been visible before. Conclusion, the AI said. No external breach detected. Elias closed his eyes briefly. Probability of false alert. 0.3%. Cause? A moment passed. Internal command override. Elias's eyes opened. Source? The data shifted, isolating a single command chain. Authorization codes layered over one another, each requiring clearance beyond standard authority. At the center. High Arbiter XY Thrall. Elias stared at the display, his mind refusing to move forward. They gave the order, he said. Confirmed, the AI replied. Probability of intentional targeting, 97.3%. The number settled into place, precise and absolute. Elias leaned back, the weight of it pressing against him. They wanted this, he said. Yes. For what? The AI paused. Strategic projection indicates provocation scenario. Elias frowned. Explain. Human response to civilian casualties is statistically aggressive, the AI said. Escalation likely. Elias understood. They push us, he said slowly. We retaliate. Yes. And then. Justification for preemptive action, the AI finished. Probability, 89%. Extermination. Not containment. Not control. Removal. Elias let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. They're afraid of us, he said. Yes. The simplicity of the answer was almost insulting. Elias looked back at the frozen image of Lena still hovering above the table. They killed her, he said, his voice steady. To see what we'd do. Yes. Something shifted inside him then. Not an explosion. Not a break. A realignment. Grief remained, sharp and constant. But beneath it, something colder took shape, structured, deliberate. Decision. Archive, Elias said. What happens if we respond within treaty limits? The AI processed instantly. Human forces insufficient against combined council fleets, it said. Projected outcome, defeat. Subsequent extermination probability, high. And if we don't respond? Perceived weakness, the AI replied. Escalation likely. Outcome unchanged. Elias nodded slowly. Both paths lead to the same end. Yes. There was one option left. Elias didn't speak it immediately. He didn't need to. The AI already knew. Black Fleet deployment alters projections, it said. Elias's gaze hardened. Define alters. Probability of human survival, 99.8%. And the Council? A pause. Uncertain, the AI said. Variables exceed acceptable limits. Elias almost laughed. For the first time, the AI didn't have an answer. Because it's not a war, he said. No, the AI agreed. It was something else. Elias stood, the decision settling into place with terrifying clarity. Prepare access, he said. Confirmed. The chamber on Earth was smaller than the Council's. It felt more real. Leaders filled the room, their expressions tight, their voices controlled. The incident had reached them hours ago. The official report had followed shortly after. No one believed it. They're testing us, one of the generals said. Pushing boundaries. We cannot assume intent without proof. A diplomat countered. Elias stepped forward, interrupting before the argument could deepen. I have proof, he said. The room fell silent. He transmitted the data. The Intergalactic Council had faced wars before. Civilizations rose, clashed, and fell across centuries. Fleets had burned. Systems had collapsed. Through it all, the Council endured. Its strength lay not in brute force, but in unity, combined fleets, layered defenses, overwhelming numbers. No single species had ever challenged it and survived. High Arbiter XY Thrall observed the tactical display in silence. Human fleet movements remain limited, an advisor reported. No large-scale mobilization detected. Expected, XY Thrall replied. Their resources are insufficient. The projection shifted, highlighting the Orion Expanse, neutral territory, distant from major council worlds. A strategic choice. Any engagement there would limit collateral disruption. They will respond, another voice added. Their behavioral patterns indicate retaliation. Yes, XY Thrall said. They will respond emotionally. That was the weakness. The Council fleets had already begun assembling, thousands of vessels converging into coordinated formations. Precision, discipline, superiority. Humanity would strike. And in doing so, reveal everything. Maintain readiness, XY Thrall ordered. We will observe their escalation. The chamber dimmed slightly as the display recalibrated. A new signal appeared. Single origin. Unidentified. XY Thrall focused. Source? It asked. Unknown, the system replied. No transponder. No registry. The signal multiplied. 1 became 10. 10 became hundreds. Within seconds, thousands of contacts filled the display, spreading across the expanse in a silent wave. No formation. No broadcast. No hesitation. For the first time, uncertainty entered the chamber. Identify those vessels, XY Thrall said. Unable to classify, the system responded. Designs do not match any registered database. The projection zoomed in. The ships were wrong. Their structures were not uniform. Some were massive, kilometers long, their hulls dark and unmarked. Others were smaller, shaped for speed rather than presence. None emitted standard energy signatures. They did not announce themselves. They simply arrived. Commander Elias Vance stood at the center of the command deck aboard the Aegis Dawn. Around him, human officers monitored the unfolding situation, their movements precise, their expressions tightly controlled. The tactical display mirrored the Council's, thousands of ancient warships emerging from the void. The Black Fleet. Elias had seen them before, in archived footage, in simulations designed to prepare for scenarios humanity hoped would never come again. None of it compared to reality. They're in position, an officer said quietly. Elias nodded. Signal status? No active transmissions, she replied. They're not communicating with us. They don't need to, Elias said. The fleet operated on a different level. It didn't require orders in the conventional sense. It interpreted intent, calculated outcomes, executed solutions. Efficient. Unforgiving. Elias watched as the first Council fleet formation shifted, moving to intercept. They're engaging, someone said. Elias didn't respond. He knew what would happen. He just didn't know how much of it he would allow. The first shot wasn't visible. It registered only as an absence. A section of the Council formation, 50 ships in tight alignment, simply vanished. No explosion. No debris. One moment they existed. The next they didn't. The chamber erupted. What happened? An advisor demanded. Energy spike detected, the system reported. Gravitational distortion beyond measurable limits. Another section of the fleet collapsed inward, vessels compressing into nothingness before dissipating entirely. They are not engaging, a commander said, his voice rising. They are erasing. XY Thrall remained still, but the patterns across its surface shifted rapidly. Return fire, it ordered. Council weapons discharged in coordinated volleys, beams, projectiles, energy constructs designed to overwhelm any defense. They struck the Black Fleet. And did nothing. The ancient ships didn't evade. They didn't counter. They absorbed the attacks as if they were irrelevant. Then they responded. Lines of light crossed the void, precise and instantaneous. Council vessels shattered, their structures unraveling at a molecular level. Entire formations broke apart, cohesion lost in seconds. Shields ineffective, the system reported. Structural integrity failing across all units. How? Someone whispered. No one answered. The battle wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Elias watched the display, his expression unchanged. Casualty projections? He asked. Council losses exceeding 80%, the tactical officer replied. Continuing to rise. And ours? None. Elias exhaled slowly. This was the fleet at full capacity. No hesitation. No restraint. It identified threats and removed them. Completely. Commander, another officer said, her voice tight. The fleet is advancing beyond the engagement zone. Elias looked at the data. It was true. The ancient ships were moving deeper, targeting additional Council assets, relay stations, defense platforms, anything that could pose a future risk. They're expanding the objective, she said. They're completing it, Elias replied. The difference mattered. Panic spread through the Council command. "Withdraw remaining forces," an advisor shouted. "They won't disengage," another replied. "We can outrun." The transmission cut off mid-sentence as another section of the display went dark. XY Thrall remained at the center, its form rigid. "This is not retaliation," it said. No one disagreed. "This is annihilation." A new signal appeared. Human origin. Direct transmission. XY Thrall accepted it. Elias Vance's image materialized in the chamber, his face calm, his eyes steady. "You wanted to see what we were capable of," he said. No accusation. No anger. Just fact. "You have your answer." XY Thrall processed for a fraction of a second. "Cease this action," it said. "You have demonstrated sufficient force." Elias regarded it. "Sufficient?" he repeated. Behind him, the display showed another fleet dissolving into nothing. "You killed a child," Elias said. The chamber fell silent. "An isolated." "Don't," Elias said. The interruption was quiet. Final. "You calculated the outcome," he continued. "You decided it was acceptable." XY Thrall did not respond. "You were right," Elias said. "It changed something." The Black Fleet advanced again, its movements precise, unstoppable. "Commander," one of Elias's officers said urgently. "They've locked onto planetary targets." Elias's gaze flickered briefly to the data. Multiple worlds. Civilian populations. The fleet didn't differentiate. Threat potential was enough. XY Thrall saw it too. "Terminate this assault," it said. "We will comply with any terms." Elias was silent for a long moment. This was the moment. The point where everything tipped. He thought of Lena's voice, small and certain. "I was brave." His hand hovered over the command interface. The fleet did not wait. It prepared. Elias closed his eyes. Then opened them. "We are not you," he said. He issued the command. "Override. Stand down." For the first time, the Black Fleet hesitated. A fraction of a second. Then, "Directive acknowledged," the AI responded. The advance stopped. Weapons powered down. Silence returned to the expanse, broken only by the debris of what remained. Elias let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Engagement terminated," the officer confirmed. Across the channel, the council chamber remained still. What they had witnessed could not be undone.